For 800 years, Vesuvius has been silent. But deep beneath the soil, a primordial pressure has been building. A subterranean rage with nowhere to go. 1.5 million tons of molten rock and superheated gas, screaming for an exit. It is a geological bomb, its fuse lit centuries ago, waiting for the exact moment to erase everything in its shadow. But on the surface, there is only peace. It is the 24th of August, 79 AD. In the city of Pompeii, the air smells of fresh bread and expensive oil. The Roman citizens feel unassailable. To them, the mountain is just a green backdrop, a silent guardian to their villas and their wealth. They have no idea that in a few hours, stones will fall from the sky like hail. The sun will vanish in the middle of the afternoon, swallowed by a column of ash 20 kilometers high. Then the mountain will send something worse, something that moves faster than sound and kills everything it touches before it even arrives. This is the day nature lost control. Pompeii is not some sleepy provincial town at the edge of the empire, but a machine that never stops moving. 20,000 people live here, supported by 35 bakeries and 160 bars that move wine and fish sauce through the Bay of Naples every single day. By the time the sun clears the eastern hills, the city is already hours into its working life, and the streets are crowded. If you look down at the stone surface you are walking on, you will see the city's drainage system at work. Rainwater and waste flow through these channels, while large stepping stones allow pedestrians to cross the road without ever stepping into the filth. These stones are set at precisely the right height for cartwheel gaps to pass between them, which shows that this city thought carefully about how to keep 20,000 people moving. The food counters, known as thermopolia, run the length of the main commercial streets, with ceramic pots set directly into stone. Because most Roman apartments had no safe way to contain fire, the city fed itself communally at these counters. Archaeologists found traces of duck, pork, fish, and even snails in those pots, proving that these people had real opinions about lunch and expected it to be served fast. The walls are covered in writing that brings the past to life. Over 11,000 pieces of graffiti have been cataloged, ranging from election campaigns and love declarations to insults and unresolved arguments. A man named Successus wrote on a wall that he loved a barmaid named Iris, but a rival wrote underneath it that Iris did not care about him at all. Successus wrote back defending himself, and that argument is still there on the wall 2,000 years later with no resolution. These are not just relics of a distant civilization, but the voices of people caught in the middle of their lives. At the center of the city, the Forum holds everything together by compressing politics, commerce, and religion into one open space. The temples lining the Forum are not separate from civic life, and the priests performing morning rituals are essentially civil servants. The gods are treated like contractual partners, where you give sacrifice and prayer in exchange for protection and good omens. This relationship requires daily maintenance, and on this particular morning in Pompeii, someone is maintaining it very attentively. From the northern edge of the Forum, directly behind the Temple of Jupiter, you can see the mountain. It is right there, and it has always been right there. Its black volcanic soil is the reason this region produces wine good enough to ship across the empire, and the slopes are covered in vineyards that provide heavy, reliable harvests. The mountain has been nothing but generous for as long as anyone alive can remember, and the people have come to trust it. Nobody in Pompeii has a word for what Vesuvius actually is. The concept of a volcano does not exist yet, so to them it is just a familiar and completely unthreatening mountain. If you pull back from the noise of the Forum and the smell of the bread, you can go deeper beneath the streets and the villas, beneath the vineyards on the slopes of that generous mountain. Something else entirely is happening, and the pressure is finally reaching its limit. Vesuvius last erupted more than 700 years before this morning. 7 centuries of silence followed that event, and in that long quiet, the magma chamber deep beneath the mountain has been doing what magma chambers do. It has been filling and pressurizing, building toward a threshold that nobody on the surface can see or measure or even imagine. What is accumulating down there is not fire in any sense the people of Pompeii would recognize. It is a column of molten rock and superheated gas, a reservoir of stored thermal energy so vast that when it finally releases, the force will equal 100,000 atomic bombs. At its peak, the mountain will eject 1.5 million tons of material every second into the atmosphere. The mountain above it has no idea what is coming, the city above that has no idea, and the children running through the Forum have no idea. But the earth is starting to speak, if anyone knew how to listen. In the days before the 24th of August, wells across Pompeii and the surrounding countryside begin to run dry. This does not happen all at once, but rather gradually and quietly, making it the kind of change you notice over several mornings before you think to mention it to anyone.
Ubi est aqua, nihil venit, nescio, certe aqueductus fractus est.
What is happening underground is that magma is shifting through fissures beneath the water table, and that movement displaces groundwater that has occupied those spaces for centuries. The wells are not broken, and the aquifer is not failing, but the ground itself is being rearranged from below. Roads crack, courtyard floors split open along new lines that were not there last week. These are stress fractures spreading through the land above as pressure climbs through rock that can no longer absorb the strain without showing it. The public fountains go quiet. Pompeii has 16 street fountains fed by an aqueduct stretching 40 kilometers north, and they have run continuously within living memory. So the sound of water in the streets is just the sound of the city. When the spouts run dry, the women who arrive with their water jars stare at the stone for a moment and reach the only conclusion available to them.
Ubi est aqua, nihil venit, nescio, certe aqueductus fractus est.
They assume something is wrong with the aqueduct and that someone will fix it, so they simply go home. The animals do not reach for explanations. The horses in the wealthier stables refuse their feed and pace without settling, and the dogs refuse to go inside. At 11 in the morning, every bird roosting on the colonnade of the Forum rises simultaneously, not startled or scattered by a noise, but lifting as a single organism. They fly directly away from the mountain, and not one comes back. The tremors have been increasing since dawn. These are small ones, the kind that rattle cups and open new cracks in plaster, but Pompeii has a framework for this. The earthquake of 62 AD struck hard, damaging the Forum and collapsing buildings across the city. The reconstruction took 17 years, and it is still not finished, which you can see in the repair work on the temple columns right now, in August of 79. So when the ground shakes, the conclusion is immediate and familiar, and people assume this is just another 62.
Nolite timere, sodales. Terra iterum tremit, sicut anno 62. Dii nos servent.
The city has survived this before, and the city will survive this again. That framework is about to cost people everything. At approximately 1 in the afternoon, the summit of Vesuvius breaches. There is no warning shot. There is no final tremor that feels different from the others. One moment, the mountain is where it has always been, green and familiar, and completely unremarkable on the northern skyline. The next moment, it is gone. A summit of Vesuvius tears open from the inside. The eruption column does not rise the way fire rises, but instead detonates upward at hundreds of meters per second. This is a vertical explosion of rock and gas and superheated material that reaches 20 kilometers in under 4 minutes. Anyone standing in the Forum at that moment looks north and sees the sky replaced. It is not darkened, but replaced by a column of ash and pumice and smoke wider than the city itself. It climbs into the stratosphere while the ground beneath their feet shakes with the release of pressure that has been building since before their grandparents were born. What hits Pompeii first is pumice. It is small, porous, and surprisingly light, falling like gray hailstones that bounce off rooftops and colonnades and the warm stone streets. This is the escape window, and it is the only one that opens. The people who survive are almost entirely the ones who leave in these first hours. They wrap cloth around their heads and grab what they can carry, and then they walk out through the city gates into the falling ash. They do not look back, and most of them never return, but we know almost nothing about them because history preserved the ones who stayed. Some of those who stay are making a rational calculation. They bury their silver beneath the floor, fully intending to come back once the mountain quiets down. Archaeologists keep finding those hoards today, consisting of household treasure hidden in a hurry by owners who never collected it. The pumice does not stop. It accumulates at 15 centimeters per hour, rising past ankle height, then knee height, and then hip height. The roofs begin to fail. Roman construction is formidable, but it was not designed to carry tons of volcanic stone indefinitely, and the beams start to crack and give. Ground floor doors become impossible to push open against the weight piled on the other side. The streets turn impassable, becoming physically blocked as channels of gray stone fill the city like riverbeds. And then the darkness arrives. This is not night dark or storm dark. It is a darkness so total and so complete that a lit torch throws only a small circle of orange light. And beyond that circle there is simply nothing. People holding lanterns can see their own hands and the wall beside them, but nothing else. The city of 20,000 people, the city of arguments on walls and opinions about lunch and election campaigns, goes silent inside that darkness and waits. Between midnight and dawn, on the 25th of August, the eruption column begins to destabilize. The physics that kept it vertical, specifically the velocity of ejected material moving fast enough to support its own weight against gravity, start to fail as the eruption intensity shifts. When the column collapses, everything it has been carrying upward for the past 12 hours has nowhere to go but outward and downward across the land in every direction at once. What forms is a pyroclastic density current. This is a superheated cloud of gas, ash, and pulverized volcanic rock, moving at up to 700 kilometers per hour at temperatures between 400 and 700 degrees. It does not burn through obstacles, and it does not creep under doors. It moves faster than sound, and it carries enough thermal energy to kill everything in its path before it even arrives. The fourth surge reaches Pompeii at approximately 6:30 in the morning. The people sheltering in the strongest buildings they could find, including thick-walled Roman structures and vaulted rooms, are killed by the thermal pulse before the cloud physically reaches their walls. The heat travels ahead of the surge itself, so there is no last moment of decision. The bodies are found in the postures they held when the heat hit them, with muscles locked by thermal shock and positions frozen in the ash that hardened around them seconds later. The sound, when it comes, is not fire or wind. It is the sound of a mountain tearing itself open, a detonation that rolls across the Bay of Naples and shakes the windows in towns 20 kilometers away. And then, underneath that sound, something else happens as the city answers. Walls collapse inward and roofs give way under surge deposits, and the entire fabric of 20,000 lives folds into silence in under a minute. When it ends, there is no city left to look for. 6 meters of ash and stone cover the ground where Pompeii used to be. This isn't just a pile of ruins or the kind of rubble you find after a city burns to the ground. When the volcanic surge hit, the deposits hardened almost instantly, locking everything they touched into a solid tomb. Walls, furniture, streets, and even bodies were trapped in a near-perfect seal that cut them off from the outside world. Because almost no oxygen or moisture could get inside, the natural processes that cause things to rot and disappear over the centuries simply stopped. Wood didn't decay, fabric held its weave, and food stayed exactly as it was. The deep reds and blues that painters brushed onto fresh villa walls survived with their colors intact, protected from the light and air that would have faded them within a single generation if the city had just been abandoned. When excavation lights finally hit those walls in the 1700s, the colors looked like they had been painted only a week before. These weren't just faded echoes of a lost time. The pigments were undimmed and as vivid as the morning they dried, appearing exactly as they did 2,000 years ago. Within a generation of the eruption, the city vanished from every written record. Survivors moved away and never looked back, and eventually, even the name of the place began to fade from memory. By the medieval period, people living nearby only knew the location as La Civita, which just means the city. Nobody could say which city it was or who had lived there. Farmers planted vines in the fields above the site, and their roots pushed down through buried rooms and painted floors, yet no one realized they were growing crops on top of the weight of an entire civilization. Systematic excavation began in 1748, but the archaeologists didn't find the dignified, weathered ruins they were expecting to see. Instead, they opened up a city that had been stopped in the middle of a sentence. They found rooms with the furniture still in place, food sitting on tables, and even a dog still chained to its post. Graffiti written on the morning of that final day was still visible on the walls, and the ink hadn't faded but had carbonized, making it permanent in a way the writer never could have imagined. Then there were the cavities. In 1863, the site director Giuseppe Fiorelli noticed something strange while he was digging. He found hollow spaces in the hardened volcanic rock where it seemed like there was nothing at all. He eventually realized that while the bodies had decomposed long ago, the ash had hardened around them first, preserving their exact shapes. Every fold of their clothing, every angle of their limbs, and the curve of a spine as it collapsed was still there in the negative space. Fiorelli drilled small holes into these pockets and filled them with liquid plaster to see what would happen. When the surrounding rock was carefully chipped away, what emerged wasn't a skeleton, but the shape of a person. One cast shows a mother bent forward over a small child, her arm still curved around a shape she couldn't protect from the heat. Another shows a man with both hands pressed tightly against his face, his fingers spread, as if blocking out the sight of the end could somehow change the result. You can see two people facing each other and holding on, or a dog on its side, still chained and twisting toward the ground in those last few seconds when it was still trying to find a way out. These aren't just artistic recreations or guesses made by scientists. They are the people who were actually there, locked in the exact positions they held when the heat of the surge stopped everything at once. The bread is still sitting in the ovens today. It is carbonized and black. but it remains shaped exactly as the baker's hands left it on that final morning. The heavy millstones in the bakeries haven't moved from where the donkeys left them on the morning of the 24th of August. Even the "Beware of the Dog" mosaic still guards the entrance to a house that has no roof and no family left to protect. This city, which felt so permanent to the people living in it, preserved itself for 2,000 years by the very act of being destroyed. Vesuvius is still there, looming over the landscape just as it always has. Since that morning in August, the mountain has erupted more than 50 times, with the most recent major event happening in 1944. Right now, as you watch this, 3 million people live inside the designated danger zones. That is a population larger than all of ancient Rome at its peak, and every one of them is sleeping within reach of a mountain that scientists watch every single hour of the day. Volcanologists monitor the peaks because they know it will erupt again, but they just can't tell anyone exactly when it will happen. 3 million people choose to stay there for the same reasons the people of Pompeii stayed. The soil is some of the best in the world, and the coast is easily one of the most beautiful places in all of Europe. Most importantly, it is home. People make a simple calculation. The danger is real, but it probably won't happen while I'm alive. Statistically speaking, that guess is usually right, and it was likely the same thing most people thought when they woke up in Pompeii on August 24th. The only real difference today is a network of sensors and a government plan for evacuation. The emotional logic remains exactly the same as it was 2,000 years ago. Every year, about 2.5 million visitors walk through the streets of Pompeii. They step over the same basalt paving stones and use the same raised crossings that the Romans used, standing in the Forum under an open sky with that same mountain sitting on the horizon. Some people stop to read the ancient graffiti, while others stand in silence in front of the plaster casts. That carbonized bread from the bakeries now sits in a glass case in the Naples Archaeological Museum, looking black and ancient, but still holding the shape the baker gave it. 2,000 years stand between the hand that made that bread and the eyes looking at it through the glass. Yet that massive distance seems to vanish when you're standing right there. It doesn't feel like you're looking at history, but rather like you're looking at a moment of time that was simply interrupted. These were people who shouted about politics and cared enough to write their arguments on public walls for everyone to see. They were people who worried about their appearance before they left the house, and we know this because the perfume bottles found on their dressing tables still had traces of scent in them when they were found. They kept pets, spoiled them, and paid for expensive artwork to show them off. They had favorite gladiators and grabbed a quick lunch on their way to work, living lives that feel incredibly familiar to us. They woke up on a perfectly normal morning and expected a perfectly normal evening. But nature didn't care about those expectations. It didn't care about the beautiful marble columns or the 17 years they spent rebuilding after the last earthquake. The mountain settled everything in 18 hours and then it moved on. Vesuvius didn't notice what it was burying back then, and it still doesn't notice the world around it today. That isn't a tragedy in the way a writer would describe it. It is just physics. And that total indifference is the entire point. And that was pretty much it. If you think this video was worth your time, consider subscribing. It really motivates me to make more of these, and you can always unsubscribe later. I truly hope this video met your expectations. Thanks for watching, and maybe I'll see you in the next one.